The moment my son shoved an envelope into my hand and said, "We don't need you anymore," I knew everything had changed. Not because they won the lottery. No, because they thought I didn't matter now that the money came in. What they didn't know, the winning ticket was in my name, not theirs. But before we get to that beautiful twist of fate, let me tell you how I ended up being pushed out of my own son's house like some unwanted guest. My name is Ruth Sanders. I'm 68 years old and I live, or used to live, in a quiet corner of Brookview, Illinois with my son Nathan and his wife Tracy. I moved in with them 2 years ago, right after I lost my husband of 46 years. We had shared everything. A small white house with green shutters, a garden full of daisies, and a peaceful life built on hard work and loyalty. After he passed, Nathan insisted I sell the house and move in with them. "It doesn't make sense for you to be alone," he said. "We've got space and it's only right." Back then it sounded like love. Now I know better. The house they lived in was twice the size of mine, in a newer part of town with fancy homes and plastic smiles. Tracy was always polite, always smiling, but it was the kind of smile that never touched her eyes. I knew she didn't want me there. Still, I tried to be helpful. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed out of their way. I gave them most of my monthly retirement check because expenses were higher with an extra person, according to Tracy. I never asked questions. I was just grateful to be with family. Every Friday, I did the one thing I'd done religiously for 30 years. Walked to Connie's Market on 4th Street and bought a single pick 5 ticket with my regular numbers 3, 12, 21, 34, 45. They weren't random. Every number meant something. 3 was the number of rooms in the first apartment I shared with my husband. 12 was the age Nathan won his first county science fair. 21 was our anniversary. 34 was my old locker number at the textile mill. And 45 was the number of years I spent with the only man who ever treated me like gold. I never expected to win. Not really. It was a habit, a memory, a tiny piece of control I still had. Something that was mine. Nathan and Tracy didn't care much about the ticket. In fact, they used to laugh at me for it. "That $5 could go toward groceries," Tracy would say with a smirk. But that week something changed. That Thursday I bought my ticket like usual. Connie, the clerk, smiled like she always did and said, "Maybe this'll be the one, Miss Ruth." I smiled, nodded, and tucked it in my purse behind an old photo of my husband. That was our ritual. The next evening, Tracy was pacing the living room holding her phone, her voice sharp. "Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? I'm reading the numbers right now, 3, 12, 21, 34, 45. My heart skipped. Those were my numbers. But before I could say a word, Nathan burst in, grabbed my purse off the table and started digging. I stood frozen. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just pulled out the ticket with shaking hands, stared at it, then looked at Tracy. "It's here. We have it." They screamed, hugged, jumped up and down. And I stood there, invisible. Not one thank you. Not one mom you might have won. Nothing. Instead, Tracy looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't worry, we'll make sure you're taken care of." It wasn't a promise. It was a threat. By Sunday, the celebration had turned into cold strategy. Tracy's lawyer cousin was suddenly involved. They were discussing how to claim it safely. My name wasn't mentioned once. That afternoon they asked me to sign something. "Just a formality," Nathan said. It was a release. A full transfer of the ticket and any rights to the winnings, to Nathan and Tracy. I didn't sign it. Tracy was furious. "You're being difficult for no reason," she hissed. But I stayed quiet. That night they had a private call with the lottery office. They thought I was asleep. I heard Tracy say, "We'll say she bought it as a gift. That should be enough." That's when I realized they weren't just ungrateful. They were ready to erase me. The next morning, Nathan handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $1,500. "Your share," he said. And a typed note. "We appreciate everything, but it's time for us to have our own space. You'll need to move out by the end of the month." That was it. No discussion. No warmth. Just a goodbye disguised as a business transaction. I looked up at him and all I said was, "Are you sure you read that ticket carefully?" He blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled. But I didn't answer. I didn't pack a thing that morning. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, made a fresh pot of coffee, and waited for Tracy to come downstairs. When she did, still in silk pajamas with her phone glued to her ear, she didn't even look at me. Just muttered, "We'll handle her. It's under control." Her. Not Mom. Not Ruth. Just her. It was clear now. I was no longer family. I was an obstacle. By noon, Nathan came home early from work, if you can call managing his fantasy football group from a home office work. He sat across from me at the table with a folder in his hand. Inside were 2 documents: a lease agreement for a discounted senior apartment, and a power of attorney form. He slid them toward me without a word. I glanced at the lease. The address was a rundown complex on the outskirts of Brookview, near the interstate. No grocery store nearby, no bus stop, just concrete and noise. As for the power of attorney, it would give Nathan full access to handle any financial matters on my behalf, including lottery-related issues. I sipped my coffee. "And if I don't sign this?" Tracy entered the room with a smirk. "Then you're refusing help. And if something happens to you out there, it's on you." Nathan added, "We're just trying to protect you. You're not getting any younger, Mom." I looked at my son, my only son, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. But I didn't sign. Instead, I told them I needed time to think. That night, while they celebrated with champagne in the backyard, I went into my room and opened my drawer. Inside was the original lottery ticket, safely tucked in a small blue envelope, along with the purchase receipt from Connie's Market. And right there, printed in black and white above the barcode, "Purchased by Ruth Sanders." They hadn't even noticed. They just assumed, like they assumed I'd hand everything over like I always did. But not this time. The next morning, I paid a visit to someone they didn't know I still spoke to. Cliff Myers, a retired attorney from my church. I'd baked pies for his wife's birthday for the last 10 years, and he always said, "If you ever need anything, Ruth, you call me." I called. I showed him the ticket, the receipt, and explained everything. Every cold remark. Every fake smile. Every manipulation. He listened in silence, then said the words that changed everything. "This ticket is legally yours. If they claim otherwise, it's fraud." I left his office with a folder, a plan, and a calm I hadn't felt in months. When I got back to the house, Tracy was in the kitchen with her sister, bragging about how fast the money was going to hit the account. Nathan was on speakerphone with a real estate agent talking about a vacation home near the coast. And me? I quietly opened the fridge, made myself a sandwich, and listened, because I wanted to hear every plan they made. Every lie, every dream, built on something that wasn't even theirs. The next day, I filed the claim in my own name. The state lottery representative, Angela, was kind but firm. Ownership is determined by who purchased the ticket, not who found it. She took copies of the receipt, my ID, and Cliff's legal statement. 3 days later, the money was confirmed and would be deposited into a new account under my name. Fully protected. No access from Nathan. No signatures from Tracy. They had no idea. But I wanted them to know. So that evening, I placed a copy of the claim confirmation on the kitchen counter. When they got home from dinner, Tracy picked it up first. I was in the next room folding towels. First silence. Then shouting, "What is this?" I walked in slow and steady. "That's a copy of the claim I filed. In my name. Because I bought the ticket." Tracy's face turned pale. Nathan's mouth opened, but no words came. "You're lying," he finally managed. I handed him the original receipt. The one with my name, date, and payment info. "Still think I'm lying?" He slammed the paper on the table. "You went behind our backs?" I looked him in the eye. "No. I just stopped letting you walk all over me." He started to argue, but I held up a hand. "You said I needed to leave. That it was time for you to have your space. You were right. I'm moving out. But not to that apartment." Tracy scoffed. "Oh really? And where exactly are you going to live?" I smiled. "Wherever I want. Because when you've spent your whole life being useful, quiet, and polite, sometimes the best revenge is finally being free." I left before sunrise. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just a small suitcase, a thermos of hot tea, and the satisfaction of knowing they'd wake up to a half-empty house and a reality they couldn't control. I'd already arranged everything with Cliff. He connected me with a financial advisor, a property agent, and a private security consultant. Within 72 hours of filing the claim, I had a new place to live. A quiet condo on the other side of Brookview, with a garden, friendly neighbors, and most importantly, a door they couldn't barge through. I didn't even take the old car they let me use. I bought myself a new one. Clean title. Paid in full. By the time Nathan and Tracy realized what had happened, I was sitting on a balcony, watching birds flutter over the hedges, sipping tea from a china cup I hadn't used in decades. My phone started ringing around 7:45 a.m. Nathan. Then Tracy. Then both. I didn't answer. At 9:12 a.m. a text popped up. Nathan. Mom, we need to talk. Please. Call me. By noon the tone shifted. Nathan. What you did was wrong. We're family. This wasn't supposed to be about money. Family. That word again. Funny how it only shows up when someone wants something. I didn't reply. Later that evening there was a knock at my new door. It was Nathan. Alone. No Tracy. No arrogance this time. Just a face full of panic and sweat. Mom, listen, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to push you out. It all happened so fast. Tracy just got excited and I didn't let him finish. You gave me a check and told me to leave. I did exactly what you asked. He looked stunned. But you didn't even say goodbye. I smiled. Neither did you. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, we have plans. The house. We started talking to developers. They think we can invest the money and turn it into something big. I raised an eyebrow. We? You mean you and Tracy? He nodded. Yeah, but we can include you. We can split it. I cut him off. Nathan, the money is mine. He blinked, trying to stay calm. You don't need all of it. I stood quietly for a moment. Then I asked, do you remember when you were 12 and broke your arm playing soccer? He nodded slowly. Do you remember who drove you to the hospital, paid the ER bill, stayed up every night checking your bandages? More silence. You had nothing to offer me back then. No money. No house. No power. And I gave you everything. 'Cause that's what love looks like. No contracts. No conditions. I stepped back and held the door open. Now go home, Nathan. Take care of your wife. Enjoy your house. And the next time you think about cutting someone out of your life, remember, some people won't come back. He left without another word. That night, I slept with a peace I hadn't felt in years. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later I received a letter. From Tracy. It was short. No apologies. No warmth. Just a single sentence that told me everything I needed to know. You may have the money, but we still have the kids. Tracy's letter stayed on my kitchen counter for 2 days. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. One sentence was enough to reveal the truth. They were going to use my grandchildren, Ellie and Connor, as leverage. They were the only reason I tolerated so much for so long. The messy sleepovers, the spilled juice on my hand-sewn quilts, the late-night stories under the old oak tree in the backyard. That bond wasn't something Tracy understood. But she knew it was my weak spot. And now she was turning it into a weapon. On the 3rd day, I finally picked up the letter, folded it in half and placed it in my drawer. Then I called my old friend Mary Bloom, a retired school principal and the one person who knew everything about my family start to finish. She listened to the whole story without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, Tracy's bluffing. But even if she isn't, you don't fight people like her with anger. You fight with presence. What do you mean? I asked. She laughed softly. You've got the one thing they never thought you'd have again, freedom. So show them what it looks like. That weekend I mailed letters to Ellie and Connor. Handwritten. Personal. No mention of money. Just love. Dear Ellie, remember when we made banana bread and yours didn't rise, but we called it a banana brick and laughed anyway? Remember how you used to say, Grandma, promise me you'll never be too busy for me? I never was. And I'm still not. Dear Connor, remember how you loved playing chess with Grandpa's old board and would always move the queen first? Remember when you beat me for the first time and danced around the living room like you won the Olympics? I was proud of you then. And I still am. I signed both with "Love you always, Grandma Ruth." I didn't expect a reply. Not from them. Tracy controlled everything, their mail, their phones, their schedule. But 5 days later I got a surprise visit. Ellie, 12 years old, standing at my doorstep, backpack in hand with Connor trailing behind her. "Mom dropped us off at a friend's house. But we walked here instead," Ellie said. "I let them in. I didn't ask questions. They stayed for 3 hours. Ate cookies. Played checkers. Talked about school. Laughed. A lot. But when Connor got quiet and asked, 'Grandma, are you mad at Daddy?' I knew this wasn't just a visit. They were confused. Caught in a storm too big for them to understand. 'No, sweetheart,' I said. 'I'm just making sure everyone knows where the lines are drawn. Sometimes adults forget what matters.' But I haven't." That evening, I drove them back to Tracy's friend's house. When I knocked on the door, it wasn't the friend who opened it. It was Tracy. She stared at me, furious. "You had no right." I raised my hand calmly. "I didn't come for a fight. I just came to return the children you misplaced." Ellie clung to my side for one last hug. Tracy yanked her away. As I turned to go, Tracy hissed under her breath, "Don't think this is over." I paused. "It is for me," I said. But I knew it wasn't. Not really. Because Tracy had one more card to play. And she was about to use it. 3 days later I got a knock on my door. 2 people in suits. Bank representatives. They were investigating suspicious activity related to the claim of the lottery funds. Apparently, someone had filed a counterclaim, asserting that I had wrongfully taken winnings that belonged to the household. And guess who filed it? Tracy. This wasn't a family matter anymore. It was a legal one. And if she thought I'd back down, she hadn't been paying attention. Because I'd been underestimated my entire life. And that was her biggest mistake. Tracy thought filing a counterclaim would scare me. What she didn't expect. I welcomed it. Letting a judge see who we really were, that was something I was more than ready for. Cliff, my attorney, filed the appropriate response within 24 hours. We brought in the original purchase receipt, surveillance footage from Connie's market, and witness statements, including one from the clerk, Donnie, who printed the winning ticket. We didn't just have evidence. We had truth. The hearing was scheduled within 10 days. The courtroom was small, quiet, and smelled faintly of dust and old carpet. Nathan and Tracy sat across from me, dressed like they were heading to a business luncheon. She wore all beige. He looked down most of the time. I wore a navy blouse and my late husband's silver cross. Not for decoration. For grounding. The judge reviewed the documents slowly. Then came the question. "Mrs. Sanders, can you explain how this ticket came into your possession?" I stood. "Yes, Your Honor. I bought it. As I have every Friday for over 30 years. I always use the same numbers. They belong to my life, not theirs." "And were your son or daughter-in-law involved in the purchase?" "No, sir." Tracy shifted in her seat. Her lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, while the ticket may have been purchased by Mrs. Sanders, it was considered part of the household property. She resided in the home, shared meals and made purchases jointly." The judge held up a hand. "Does she appear on the deed?" "No, sir." "Was the ticket bought with a joint account?" "No, sir." "Was the winning ticket ever given as a gift to either party?" "No, sir." The judge looked at me. "Do you have the receipt?" Cliff handed it over. It had the date, the store, the exact numbers, and my name tied to the card used. The judge nodded, closed the folder, and said the 4 words that ended everything. "Case dismissed with prejudice." Meaning, they couldn't bring it back. Not ever. Nathan looked crushed. Tracy? She just glared. I didn't speak to them on the way out. Didn't need to. Because the next move wasn't legal. It was personal. 3 days after the hearing I got a call. From Ellie. Her voice was quiet. "Grandma, are you mad at us?" My heart cracked. "Never." She hesitated, then asked, "Can we come visit you again?" That evening, I met them at Mary Bloom's house. Neutral ground. Safe. We played board games. Talked about school. I baked cinnamon rolls, Connor's favorite. But just before they left, Ellie whispered, "Mom said we won't see you for a while. She said you don't want to be around us anymore." I took her hand. "That's not true." You are always welcome in my life, no matter what anyone else says. I sent them home with a tin of cookies and a note, sealed in an envelope, addressed to their parents. Inside it said, I may have walked away from your house, but I will never walk away from your children. That was the end of it, or so I thought, until a knock came on my door. It was Tracy, alone, but she wasn't angry this time. She was desperate. We need help, she said. I didn't answer right away, because some part of me already knew the fortune hadn't made them rich. It had only made them reckless, and now they were paying for it. Tracy stood on my doorstep, eyes hollow, makeup worn off, hands clenched in front of her like a schoolgirl in trouble. Nathan lost his job. The mortgage is behind. We thought we could flip the second house, but the buyers backed out. I stayed silent. We didn't budget right. We thought we'd get more time. We've got debts, private loans, credit cards. The bank's already called twice this week. Still I said nothing. Finally she asked the real question. Is there any way you could help? There it was. Not a request for forgiveness. Not an apology. Just a hand reaching out when they were drowning. I thought about everything. The nights I cleaned their dishes while they laughed in the living room. The time I heard Tracy joke to her friend. It's like having free staff. She cooks, cleans, and pays rent. The check Nathan gave me with a type note saying I had to move. The way they tried to claim my winnings. The way they weaponized my grandkids. I took a breath. Then I answered. No. Tracy blinked. Excuse me. You asked if I could help. I can. But I won't. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Not because I want revenge, but because if I help you now, you'll never learn. You'll just do it to someone else someday. Maybe even to Ellie or Connor. She looked stunned. You're turning your back on your own family? No, Tracy, I said calmly. You did that 2 months ago. Then I closed the door. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was simply done. Later that week I made a donation, a large one, to the local school where Ellie and Connor were enrolled. It funded a reading program, new instruments for the music class, and a scholarship fund in honor of my late husband, Frank Sanders. I set up a trust for each child, locked tight until they turned 21. No access by parents. No loopholes. When they're grown, they'll know exactly who believed in them, even when their parents lost their way. As for me, I kept playing my lottery numbers every Friday at Connie's Market. Not because I needed more money, but because some rituals are worth keeping. Sometimes I see Nathan in town. He doesn't look me in the eye. That's fine. We both know what happened. And the truth is, I don't wish him harm. I just wish he'd grown into the man I used to imagine when he was small, when he'd fall asleep on my shoulder, and I'd whisper promises I truly meant. Promises to protect him, to teach him right from wrong, to show him what real love looks like. And I did. Even when he forgot. Even when it hurt. Because that's what real mothers do. And that's who I'll always be, with or without their approval.